For many people, casual small talk works like a kind of social lubricant, helping conversations start and keeping everyday interactions smooth. It reflects the routine exchange of "how are you" that people use out of habit. The excerpt contains two items. One is an empty utterance and the other is a short conversational remark. "Nice weather we're having." In an academic context, the second line can be treated as small talk used to open or maintain a brief exchange rather than to add new information. It helps prevent long pauses in shared spaces and supports the everyday routines that keep social life running. For many people, these interactions do not make things run more smoothly. They add friction and slow the work down. They do not just see small talk as uninteresting. It can leave them feeling both mentally tired and physically worn out. If you prefer talking about questions like the nature of the universe instead of sharing weekend plans, that does not mean something is wrong with you, and it does not automatically mean you are shy. There is a psychological framework that helps explain why some people dislike the shallow end of the social pool, where talk stays superficial and interaction feels low stakes or forced. Section 1 looks at why social activity can feel draining for introverts, starting with how the brain is set up. Not everyone who dislikes small talk is an introvert, but the overlap between the two is large. In academic terms, the key issue is how the brain and body take in and interpret sensory input. In academic terms, it can help to treat social energy as a battery. Extended social interaction tends to drain it, while rest and time alone can recharge it. For an extroverted person, brief small talk can work like a slow charger. Each short greeting provides a small boost in energy. For an introvert, social energy is limited, and social situations can drain it quickly. In many settings, small talk takes a lot of effort to keep going and often offers little payoff. It asks you to watch facial expressions, voice tone, and other social cues while you follow a script that you do not find meaningful or engaging. This takes place in the reticular activating system, a set of brainstem networks that helps control arousal and alertness. For some individuals, everyday small talk can feel like intrusive noise and may trigger sensory overload. This is not rudeness. It is a judgment that the effort and attention the conversation requires is greater than the information you expect to gain from it. In addition to questions about energy, this section looks at authenticity and why it matters for the analysis. People who strongly dislike small talk often score high on the Big Five personality trait known as openness to experience. These individuals seek depth, new ideas, and demanding intellectual work. For them, small talk often feels like an act of masking rather than a genuine exchange. Consider a common situation. Someone asks, "How are you?" When someone asks how you are and you reply, "I'm fine," even though you are having a rough day, what you say does not match what you feel. That mismatch is cognitive dissonance. You are expressing one view outwardly, but your internal feelings do not match what you are saying. For people who prefer in-depth discussion, small talk often feels like an obstacle rather than a starting point for meaningful conversation. It tends to make people keep their distance. In most academic settings, people are less concerned with a detailed account of your day and more concerned with your underlying identity, your values, goals, and patterns of thought. In other words, they are asking what kind of person you are, not what you happen to do this morning. They have trouble caring about the usual social script because they already expect a predictable outcome. When a conversation follows an expected pattern, the brain's reward system tends to respond less, and dopamine release is lower. Section 3 looks at the all-or-nothing communicator and the cognitive style that shapes this way of speaking. Some people communicate in an all-or-nothing way, treating issues as either entirely right or entirely wrong, rather than allowing for partial agreement or mixed outcomes. They feel at ease both when speaking to an audience during a presentation and when sitting with a close friend in a dark room for a long, searching conversation. They are uneasy about the middle ground, the awkward stage where two people are no longer strangers but are not yet friends either. In this setting, the rules for interaction are not clearly defined. Aim for a professional tone. Be polite without sounding overly familiar, and stay engaged without overdoing it. Doing this often calls for constant self-monitoring, which can be tiring for people who would rather speak and act in a straightforward way without filtering themselves. Section 4. Evolutionary purpose. If small talk feels draining, what evolutionary reasons explain why people still engage in it? Psychologists argue that this response has an evolutionary role. It works as a basic safety check. In early human groups, people likely assessed a stranger first before accepting them into the group or sharing food with them. In everyday interaction, small talk often works like a brief social greeting that sets the stage for more personal, meaningful conversation. It lets us adjust our tone and look for warning signs while keeping the stakes low. Disliking small talk should not be treated as a personal shortcoming. This suggests you care more about the underlying content than the outward appearance. You are not being difficult. You're seeking a kind of interpersonal depth that small talk like, "How about those local sports teams?" cannot provide. A quotation by itself can never provide enough support for an academic claim. When a discussion becomes dull or unproductive, it may help to remember that many people experience the same thing. You seem focused on the core argument, while many discussions spend too much time on preliminary points.